This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's worst 250 movies so you do not have to.
I'm Michelle St. Clair.
I'm Abigail Ward.
And this week we watched Dungeons and Dragons. Profion, a tyrant, attempts to overthrow a peaceful kingdom ruled by a tough empress. Let's watch.
Wow, hello.
Oh
we
my
have
God.
a special guest.
Special surprise guest. I think we didn't announce specifically, but you'd see in the episode name. It's Claude Davies.
Hi, everybody.
It's my husband.
I'm here on air with Abby and Mish.
Wow. Oh my God. And we've never met, so this is really great
this
for
is
me.
Huge. This is a huge moment.
Huge.
Michelle always thought I was just lying about the husband that I claimed that I had.
Yeah, every time she said husband on air, I would do quotation marks.
Every
And
time.
I thought she was
husband.
lying about the podcast co-host she had.
I know.
I thought she just used like a voice modifier for the other half, but
Yeah, Abby would optionally. So all of Abby's interrupting of me and stuff, that's just Abby doing solo bits.
Well, here's the thing.
yeah.
She's a
And,
talent.
I mean, it'll come out anyway, but Claude doesn't listen to the podcast.
Well, that tracks.
you
Do
can't
you have anything to say, Claude,
on
about
air.
your lack of support?
I don't know. I feel accused in
Yeah.
this moment.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just not a huge podcast guy. I say as I on this
Are you a
podcast.
huge wife guy?
I'm a
Are you-
huge
you
wife
hugely
guy.
into your wife?
a
huge
huge
wife
wife
guy.
guy.
Yeah.
And your
yeah.
wife is huge.
Yeah.
Wow.
She's
yeah.
tall as hell.
Yeah,
Wow.
she's really tall. Really tall.
So what are 10 things you love about me?
10 things I love about
Just because the
you.
listeners want to know.
Oh, no.
That we've
Listeners,
specifically
Abby
been asked.
threatened to do this immediately before recording, and this is
Yeah, don't
finding
say I
this
didn't set you up.
desperately amusing.
I love how headstrong you are.
Yeah, keep
I
going.
love how
that's
you're
one.
the empress of a kingdom.
That's two.
Even
That
though
is
you were
true.
born into immense privilege, you
Yeah.
have this egalitarian social project which you're
Yeah.
really committed to.
And I lie about my privilege as well.
Yeah, you do.
Even though I
You
was
do.
born into privilege, I lie about it.
And
Yeah, so that's four. I think if we
What
include
else?
the lying.
Yep.
you ride a golden dragon.
Yep. What
You
else?
have a chainmail coif.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
That's
a
really
lot
good.
of similarities between Abby and the Empress Savina from Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons.
There are.
Just apart from
There
the
are.
things that I have, what about me as a person do you like? And it can't be about the way I positively affect your life either.
Oh my God.
What do you like
a
about
coif
me?
is really funny. Hey, look, we got an email. I'm going to just, Claude, I'm going to save you here.
Thank you.
We got an email, another email from Honored Friend of the Podcast, MR. We actually got two emails. It's just we've been busy, and of course,
So, chock-a-block.
we had an unofficial break last week. If anything, because I was exhausted and just kind of needed the week off.
Yeah, we needed the hiatus.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to just say some of the main points of it. One is that we have a new run of 5 highest rated movies, and it's once again the same shared between us, which was The Fog,
Yeah.
which was 2.5 and 3.5. I think I gave it 2.5. Anyway, The Room, which we both gave 10 out of 10. Ballistic, X vs. Sever, which I think I gave 4.3 and you gave 2.9.
Uh-huh.
Mortal Kombat, which was 5 and 5.1. And Batman and Robin, which we each gave 8.
Yeah.
Which averages about 5.9, 5.96 between us.
What the fuck?
Yeah. That's our highest rated run of 5 movies in a row.
What are we doing? Why is it getting higher?
Because they're getting better and better.
What the fuck?
Your critical faculty is...
And also, for one, it was pointed out that Keith David actually was a recurring because he was chief of police in Superhero Movie, which I forgot about.
Oh, nice.
But more than anything, there is actually a new record holder in town who has overtaken Andrew Airley and Sylvester Stone.
Who?
Michael Papajohn.
Michael Papajohn.
Do you not remember Michael Papajohn?
I remember the name, but I
we
don't
talked
remember
about
the
his
face.
crazy name. He was the Saber Guard in Jonah Hex, Gimme Your Wallet in Superhero Movie, Officer Miska in Devil's Due, Frank the tow truck driver in Jeepers Creepers 3, Jacob K/Joseph K in I Know Who Killed Me, and Bill's neighbor in Delta Force.
What?
Wow.
Michael Papajohn?
Michael Papajohn.
Should we do a bonus episode interviewing Michael Papajohn?
If we can,
He's
yeah,
actually,
we should.
he is our all-star.
He is.
My God.
Wow.
That's
he is
remarkable.
the true all-star, is Michael Papajohn.
Someone's finally beat out Sly.
Yeah.
Sylvester
And Andrew
Stallone
Ailey.
has topped as our all-star Claude for quite a long time.
Wow,
He's
wow.
always been up there with
Yeah.
a handful of others.
You
Michael
could say
now-
Papajohn's
we've
giving him a run
topped
for his money.
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah. Wow, that's remarkable.
Yeah, and of course Andrew Airley.
Yeah.
But that's mostly just because of 50 Shades.
Yeah.
Because he was the dad in 50 Shades.
Well,
That's
thank
three
you.
right there.
Thanks to Emma for doing the actual research into our own podcast that we will never bother to do. You
Yes.
are a light in our lives.
Thank you, Emma. We love you, Emma.
We love you, Emma.
Do you want to go get a drink? No, so that's not appropriate.
oh.
so I'm at work. Hey, speaking of being at work, this week we watched Dungeons and Dragons, the movie.
We did.
Yeah.
We did watch Dungeons and Dragons. And the reason that my beautiful husband here, who loves me for my coif, is with us today is because he loves the film Dungeons and Dragons. And he told me about it many moons ago.
Before we even knew it was on the list.
Yeah.
I when I was a kid and I was maybe like 10 or 11, I really liked D&D. I didn't have any friends to play D&D with really, but I had all those books, like the rule sets, and I would just read these rules and think about rolling dice with these friends I didn't have.
So you were to D&D what I was to Warhammer.
Yeah, I was also that to Warhammer.
Yeah, because I really liked a lot of like the White Dwarf magazines. I can't remember if I've said this on the podcast, but at one of those like old Scholastic book fairs, someone was selling 3 White Dwarf magazines, and I bought them and I just read them over and over and over again, so entranced by it.
Thinking about rules.
I bought like the codex for the Tau.
Nice.
I think I had bought the main rule set. We didn't have much money, so that was kind of it. Like I couldn't then get any of the figurines or anything.
I think that's a problem with Warhammer generally.
Yeah, it's kind of expensive.
Prohibitively expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mum at some point found this DVD, maybe I'm assuming in a bargain bin.
Yeah, probably.
And bought it for me.
It wasn't in the premium selection.
She watched it with me, I think, actually. She sat down
She
to be like,
did?
indulge me.
That's so kind of her. Now having
generous,
watched it,
yeah.
that's incredibly generous.
I remember being confused by it as a film, even when I was like 10 and primed to enjoy a film about
so it doesn't
dragons.
even deceive children, it's not...
No.
It is just as difficult to watch for them.
We were talking about, I feel like, what year did this come out, Michelle?
2000.
Was that the same year as Lord of the Rings?
Well, pretty much.
Well,
Lord of the
one
Rings.
of them, yeah.
Yeah,
And
the
like
first
Harry
one,
Potter.
Harry Potter came out.
Wasn't was Lord of the Rings 2000?
Oh, no, it was 2001.
2001, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
It was the year after. It was Phantom Menace
and
came out in
Harry
99.
Potter was 2001.
Yeah.
I just
first one.
think that there were a lot of other films going around
Yeah.
at this time.
Yeah.
that were
There was a lot
very
of-
good.
And
Well, yeah.
it was pointed out to us that there was a lot of Star Wars references
Oh,
within
yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons as well, which was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Oh my god! Like overflowing with not just Star Wars references, but direct rips from the
Yeah.
Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in some of this.
Nice.
Right down to like the main character Ridley is sort of dressed like Han in a
He
lot
does
of
have
ways.
a little like leather vest.
does.
thing.
Yeah, and then he even like goes into a tomb to like face his inner self. I'm like, this is a fucking scene in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, the bit where all the walls are closing in on him as well was another Star Wars throwback. There was a lot. There was a lot. And I did not expect Marlon Wayans to pop up in this film.
No, the last person I think I expected to possibly be in the Dungeons and Dragons movie was Marlon Wayans.
And I can't tell if he carried it or hindered it. I don't know.
I think he added.
I think
he added?
I think at times he did have some banger bits. I think in general I don't find him that funny, but I don't think he detracted from the movie.
Wait, you mean
know?
you don't enjoy the 2004 cult comedy White Chicks?
I don't care for white chicks.
Oh, so we're going to have another Cars repeat.
Oh my god, I don't care for white chicks, and I think that's okay. I like that
She-
one bit.
I hate your indifference. All
What's the
right,
one
all
bit
I
you like
ask
in
for
White
is
Chicks?
passion and opinions.
But that's the thing. I'm stronger than you. I simply don't care for it,
Claude,
and I will not engage.
1 or 2 episodes ago, Michelle and I had a really long fight over the Pixar film Cars.
Yeah.
Because I like it and Michelle just doesn't care for it and
don't
doesn't
care
want to
for it.
talk about it in
Care
general.
for it.
I don't care for it.
I don't care for it.
I
A lot
don't-
of people
well,
put a lot of time into that film, like rendering
Thank
the
you, Claude.
headlights,
I
don't care
those
for it.
eyes, and
But that's the thing. I don't hate it. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
And then I forgot about it because it does not entrance me. It does not entice me. I'm not drawn into its car-based world. Instead, I
is a car-based
simply
world.
sit there thinking other thoughts.
you don't find it morally instructive?
No,
This-
because I've watched
He's
any
like a
other
race
movie.
car, but he's too big for his boots or his tires.
He is, and he needs to become grounded again with a beautiful, sexy female car to guide him the way
Yeah.
in this small American town. It left an impression on me, Michelle.
what part of
and you
that-
don't even want to talk about it.
I just don't care for
What
it.
part of that doesn't resonate? That's what I
And
wanna
we
know.
haven't even touched on Mater and the comedic
God.
lines that Mater provides.
Hey, so in Dungeons and Dragons 2000,
All I'm saying is, I hate your indifference, and I think that you need to have strong opinions.
It's worse than Scorn.
It is.
In some ways. Yeah.
Exactly right.
yes,
It's hurtful.
it is in this way that I am stronger
What
than
were
you.
we talking about before Cars?
I'm
that led us to-
outplaying. I am simply outplaying you with my indifference. You
It
cannot
actually
defeat
really
me.
works. I reckon you'd go a lot further if you cared less.
Oh,
What do you think?
I do, but I do care a lot, and I care
Exactly.
deeply, and often it has been pointed out as one of my better attributes.
But also, have you tried just not caring at all?
Yeah, but sometimes the cruel indifference that people show to things is their undoing.
Like Cars. Like when people don't care about Cars.
no, I think that's different. No, you know what? I think that's different.
Well, Claude made some good points earlier about this whole debacle.
I'm sure he did. I simply
I
was
think a
not
lot of
caring to
viewers would
listen.
agree.
You
Some
know,
strong arguments.
I don't care about it. In Dungeons and Dragons 2000,
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about Marlon Wayans. Was not expecting Jeremy Irons in this, and he was not just chewing the scenery; he was eating it. He was fully devouring
He was
it.
eating it and spitting it back out.
He was.
It was going crazy. And I also, at the beginning, I was like, he's either going to give this his all or give it like zero. There
Yeah.
won't be an in between. And he really gave it his all.
He gave it a lot.
He gave it so much.
He really, if he had not been in this film, it would have been even
worse.
more forgettable.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I mean, it's carried by Justin Whalen, who is doing really nothing
Is
but
that
a smile.
Ridley?
That's Ridley.
He
Is
gave
he in anything
0%.
else? This guy?
Not really. I had his page up before. He had done a handful of things. I was in Child's Play 3 though. The main thing he was known for was Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman.
Sure.
From seasons 2 to 4.
Sure.
He's
He
like a
did.
recurring character in that.
Yeah. So he did in 2009 quit acting and just become a teacher,
Oh,
which I think is a nice ending for him. You know.
I think that's
Yeah.
good. I
Rather
feel like the writing was on the roll.
it was.
Back in 2000,
Yeah.
to be honest.
It's good when people recognize their own weaknesses.
Yeah, he was mostly in this because of Courtney Solomon, the director, who I'll get into.
Okay. All right. I'm keen
Now.
to hear about Courtney Solomon.
Let's do the key details.
Okay, all right, let's
I know
do
it's
it.
early, but there's so much to learn about this.
Ooh. It took so much to not look anything up about this film last night.
I can
except
imagine.
the plot. I tried to keep checking the plot to be like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I didn't, and I was really confused.
Mm.
So this came out in 2000, as we said. The director was Courtney Solomon, who we've actually encountered before because a decade and a half later he would direct Getaway. So he's actually a recurring all-star on the list. Remember
Getaway?
The one with the car movie with Ethan Hawke and Selena Gomez.
Oh, dude. There's so much that I just try and erase from my memory.
Someone
of this
let
podcast.
this guy direct another film?
Yeah.
Two more.
Gave
he
him
directed
another
two
shot.
more. The other
Getaway
one
was
nothing.
shocking.
Getaway was
It
shocking.
was one of those films where as soon as I watched it, I couldn't wait to get just replace it in my mind with something else.
Yeah.
It was like in and out.
It really
Water
was
off a
kinda
duck's back.
Nothing. Here's the thing. So I will get into this more and more as we go through. But Courtney Solomon, interestingly, was for one originally just meant to be the producer.
Okay.
He actually bought the rights from what was at the time TSR, who owned Dungeons and Dragons, later Wizards of the Coast. He bought the rights when he was 19.
Whoa.
How much did he buy it for?
No idea, but it all stalled in negotiations and stuff. He was a Dungeons and Dragons player who just desperately wanted to make a movie.
Which is so funny because I will say as well, just as an overall impression of this movie, it doesn't feel like Dungeons and Dragons. Not to me.
It doesn't. It really doesn't to me
Doesn't at all. Yeah.
at all.
Because I assumed the director just didn't really play it.
That's the weird thing. There's a lot about the director and about TSR and Wizards of the Coast being really protective of the license and really wanting it to be D&D. But there's so many non-D&D elements in
I
this.
feel like they just slapped a beholder into a kind of
Yeah, the
average
Beholder.
fantasy film.
It's kind of not even from one of the settings.
Yeah.
You know, which he gave an explanation of like, oh, I didn't want to put it in one of the main settings that are open to player interpretation and stuff. There's like a lot of decisions that I think in his head made it very faithful and just didn't.
But the whole thing felt way more sci-fi than fantasy. And I think that was the problem. I felt like I was watching like a Star Wars prequel rather than a D&D film.
I get what you mean. Like Willow does the very fantasy film sort of aspects of it very well, whereas this didn't have that. So Courtney Solomon, this began a decade-long quest
Fuck.
to try and make
How
this
old
movie.
is he when he's 19? 1990?
How old is he when he's 19? 19.
Sorry, what year is it when he's 19?
Hang on.
That's my husband.
That's me.
That's my husband, everybody. What do you love about me?
He wanted to produce.
Is it my eyes? My hair?
It's all those things.
He wanted to produce a film based on the game since 1990. So yeah, 1990 was when he started this quest.
That's wild.
I know.
So who's a teenager just thinking, I'm going to get in there and buy some IP?
I don't know.
This guy's hustling.
He really, really was
I
hustling.
have a lot of respect for just buying up a license when you're a teenager.
I know.
I never thought about that.
He formed Sweet Pea Entertainment at age 19 to acquire the rights to Dungeons and Dragons.
It's sick. It's a cute name as well.
I kind of love the hustle and drive of Courtney Solomon, even though this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
So,
And also, what do we feel about Courtney as a man's name?
I like it.
I like it.
I think it's fun.
I think it's got good vibes.
Yeah.
Good vibes for a.
Do you reckon he goes by Court by anyone? Hey, Court.
Hey, Court.
Yeah, Court's good.
Hey, Court. Like Bud Court.
What's that?
You know, Bud Court.
What's that?
Harold and Maude.
No.
Bud Court. Famous actor from the 70s. Educate yourself.
Sorry, Michelle. This comes from the woman that didn't know what the mutiny on the Bounty was. Educate yourself, Michelle.
We're movie people.
I hope we got dozens
Not
of
mutiny
emails.
people. I know nothing.
I'm a big mutiny guy.
Hope we got dozens of emails scorning you for
Insurrections,
that.
I'm sorry, my
Rebellions,
nautical
mutinies.
history isn't up to scratch,
I was
Abigail.
saying it last night, and I truly believe this. If I was deeply autistic, my obsession wouldn't be around trains. It would be around ships.
Yeah.
I'd be a ship girl. I get heavily into ships and all the facets of ships, not
You
just
kind of
being
are
on
really
ships.
into ships.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty close to it already. I'm already crossing that threshold, that line.
Yeah, you're figuring it out.
But there's so many different kinds of ships. You can build ships.
Uh-huh.
You can sail little ships.
That's
the
true.
sizes, the styles, the history.
So ships is to you what trains is to the
To that guy
stereotype
on
of-
TikTok that waves.
Oh, the trains guy. Yeah,
that
I
kind of
love
looks
that
like
guy.
Claude.
Yeah,
Don't you think?
someone told
He
me that.
does kind of.
Someone who you work with said that you looked like that guy, didn't?
Yeah, she did.
So this isn't even the first time you're compared to the train guy.
No, it's not.
Wow.
How do you feel about that?
No, good. He seems like he's got a really good energy.
He does have a good energy.
Yeah, they're like people like him.
Is that how you see yourself?
He's living his life.
As do you see yourself as deeply autistic?
In some ways, yeah, many ways.
Hey,
honestly,
let's unpack
that. Yeah, probably.
Let's get into that.
Hey, so this was starring Abby. You can't bully your
Sorry,
husband
this
on
is
air.
my husband.
Wow. Whoa.
Look, so this was starring Justin Whalen. The reason I bring this up and go into starring before I keep talking about the production history is that Justin Whalen is mostly in it because he was the only person involved in the pre-production.
Okay.
Because he's friends with Courtney Solomon.
Oh, okay.
This also became a thing because part of the reason that the budget vacillated so much is that people were not sure of Justin Whalen's star power because he had none.
Yeah. They weren't sure because it was non-existent.
Because it was non-existent. He has no screen presence.
He really doesn't.
Yeah. It was also had Marla Wayans, Thora Birch, who giving maybe the worst performance I've seen.
She was a highlight for how bad and wooden the performance was.
Insane. I like her as an actress.
Yeah, I thought she was
quite a
a
lot.
good actress.
But not in this.
But not in this at all. No, she was giving absolutely nothing.
She was so wooden and ADR'd. Everything that she did was bizarre. Like, and all of the CGI shots of
That
it.
scene where
it's
she's
so funny.
addressing the court
Yeah.
and she's like barely moving her face.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's giving this impassioned speech about the rights of the
She's giving like a
commoners.
freshly Botoxed kind of performance,
There's a
you know?
few points with
Freshly
its
broken.
close-ups on her and the way she like slightly leans forward while delivering. I'm like, is she reading off a cue card? Like she looks like she's reading.
Do you reckon she was just xanied out of her mind? Wouldn't blame her.
Was this after she'd been in American Beauty?
So
Yes.
this was after she'd been in American Beauty, but before it was like when she was doing this, before it was released, and thus she had breakthrough success.
Yeah.
Okay.
which is why she
But she
wasn't
had already-
expensive for them.
No, but Ghost World was after this as well, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was like 2001 or 2
Yeah.
that Ghost World came out.
Ghost World
Ghost
was
World's
later.
so good.
Ghost World is great.
I was saying to Claude last night, the thing about Ghost World and the reason I think it's a good special film is that it filled a niche that young women didn't really have, which was it was just a film about female friendship and two girls being weird.
Yeah.
It was just about how girls can be like fucking weirdos. And I think it really, like, women didn't have much of that.
Yeah.
Especially in the late 90s or early 2000s. So
It's
such a nice film.
a great movie. As we said, it's also got Jeremy Irons, as well as Zoe McLennan played Marina, who is someone who is from JAG, Dirty Sexy Money, and NCIS New Orleans.
All right. Not even just the major NCIS.
Yeah, no.
Just an offshoot.
She also has some of the biggest eyes I've ever seen, and she's constantly opening them as wide as possible in so many shots.
The mage.
She's the
the mage,
breastplate
yeah.
woman. The breastplate.
No, Breastplate Woman was Kristen Wilson.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, no. I'm
get
talking
into that.
about the mage. I'm
The
talking,
mage,
yeah,
yeah.
Who, yeah, in every sort of because you're right. The breastplate woman, the scout, is it Norda? She also had big, wide open eyes in every
Her
shot.
eyes are insane. Yeah. I mean, she's a beautiful woman, but that breastplate was really something else.
It had huge tits on it. And it had Lee Arenberg.
I know, as Elwood.
Yeah.
The dwarf
Who-
gave
The only character whose name
nothing.
we can remember.
Well,
Elwood.
you know why we can remember it? Because I looked it up because I was like, why don't we know the dwarf's name? Like, why haven't we heard it? Why does he not say anything?
His intro was nuts. He's just sort of there.
He just appears.
And then he's just with them. And he keeps talking about money, but they never talked about hiring him as a mercenary.
Yeah.
He's just sort of with them.
Lee Arenberg was too good for that role.
Too good. I like Lee Arenberg.
too.
I always think about his role in that one Seinfeld episode.
What was the episode?
The parking spot. He's arguing with George about the parking spot.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that means, as we said, returning actor Marlon Wayans from Marmaduke, Little Man, and Norbit.
Fuck
putting him at
Marlon
4.
Wayans, man. He's been a blight on this podcast.
He really has.
Little Man, still to this day, I keep bringing it up. Little Man is traumatizing to me. I saw a cafe the other day called Little Man. It made me shudder thinking about that movie. That was like a low point in this podcast.
I do think one of my favorite parts is when we were trying to unpack whether or not it counted as racist because the baby they got was a white baby that they CG'd his face onto and put the baby in brown face.
What?
And so then it was like, well,
Wow. Did it have Marlon's blessing?
well, it was his choice. So like, I guess that's anyway. We don't need to. It's not. This is really not
It's not
our
for me
battle
to
to fight.
say.
You know,
It's really not for me to
It's
say.
really not for me to say. So the budget for this was $45 million.
Wow. That's higher than I expected, to be honest.
Different points, though, and I'll get to this more. At different points, though, the budget was meant to be $100 million.
Yep.
And then for a while, it was going to be $3.5 million.
What the fuck?
So 45 actually represents a slightly blown out $30 million budget.
What the fuck?
What do you guys think the box office was?
Oh,
2 million.
that's
I will say it was a bomb, not that much.
20 million.
33.8.
Oh,
I mean, that's still a bomb. Like, if you start with $45 million and then you lose 15, I'd be pretty
it's
pissed.
terrible.
Yeah.
But also, it's not the worst we've seen.
It is not the worst we've seen. But, you know, when you add in marketing and everything, like, that's pretty atrocious.
There was one time, Claude, that the lowest box office we've ever seen was a 4-digit figure.
Yeah.
What film was this?
Oh, I
Area
can't even
51.
remember. Yeah.
Area 51, it had like $7,000 budget.
I just remember being like, Michelle, guess what it made? And you were like, something really low. And I was like, I'll give you a hint. It's 4 digits. You were like, what?
It's almost impossible for a movie like that to have a 4-digit box office.
$9,000 or something.
$7,000.
$7,000.
Craziness. All right, I'll do the overview before I do production history so that
Okay.
we can like talk about it. And feel free for this one to ask questions.
In the overview.
I will not always have answers because
Okay.
I also don't understand
Oh,
the plot.
thank God, because I thought I was just tripping out. I mean, I probably was, but also I just couldn't wrap my head around the series of maps and scepters and gems and portals.
Some of them I got, some of them I don't really understand.
Okay, great.
Okay. Izmir's young empress, Savina, rules with the power of a scepter that allows her to control gold dragons. When she wants to give rights to the common people, as they are currently held mostly by mages, a social class as well as, I guess, a job, she's opposed by the Council of Mages led by the evil Profion, who I couldn't tell whether or not he was their leader or just, like, influential. They demand that she hand over the scepter. She refuses, and anticipating a conflict, both sides try to get their hands on the legendary Rod of Sevril, which would let them control the stronger red dragons.
So the red dragons are stronger than the gold dragons.
Yes. Not in D&D lore, but in this movie, yes, the red dragons are stronger.
okay.
In D&D lore, red dragons are evil and gold dragons are good, by the way, because was it chromatic dragons are evil and metallic dragons are good?
Yeah, that's what Claude was saying last night.
Yeah. So
Hey, he's across this.
no, okay.
You don't need to explain
I'm so
this to
sorry.
Claude. Actually, I feel like it's a bit patronizing.
Well, the listeners don't necessarily know. The listeners don't know.
I'm just saying.
I'm thinking of the people.
Claude's very sensitive about his intellect.
Yeah.
Because he knows it's
I'm very
precarious.
Because it's
easily
so
offended.
high.
You'd hope.
Very easily offended.
Yeah.
All right. Teenage thieves, Ridley and Snails.
Teenage.
That's from the Wikipedia.
That's all right. Yeah, it's okay.
I can't comment on whether or not they actually were. Maybe they were 18, I don't know whether they're 18 or 24.
Okay.
Teenage thieves, Ridley and Snails, try to rob the Sumdal Magic School. Sumdal is the town they're in.
Okay.
Which is sometimes called a town,
Turning
but
to
is very
crime
clearly a
at
city
18.
with like 1,000 spires. They're caught by a young apprentice named Marina just as Prophion's assistant Damodar attacks the library wizard. Now, Damodar confused me for a while because he is mentioned as head of the Crimson Brigade, which I couldn't tell if it was a private military owned by Prophion or whether it was the town guard. Later, you get the impression it seems to be like the town guard thing,
Sure.
but
Sure.
Damodar's just in Prophion's pocket, and he's not. So I guess he's corrupt. This confused me for a long time. Attacks the library wizard to get his map to the Rod of Sevriel. Marina, Ridley, and Snails manage to escape with the map and join with a dwarf named Elwood, as we said, with no explanation.
Yeah.
Yep.
They,
Just join with him. That's
yeah, they really do. He just comes along.
He really does. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, there's a dwarf following them around.
He was there in like the garbage pile, and then I feel like I looked away from the screen for a second, and then he was just with them the next scene. And I didn't really get.
that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah, and he's like, just make sure you pay me. And I'm like, are you a mercenary or are you a homeless man? From the scroll, they learn the location of both the rod and the key to the rod.
There was a key to the rod.
Well, that's what the dragon's eye was.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What?
So they travel to the Thieves Guild, and Ridley manages to make his way to the center of the Thieves' Maze to retrieve the Dragon's Eye, a key to the Rod's temple. However, Damodar arrives and captures Marina. They are joined by the Royal Scout Norda, who at first is against them, but is actually working for the Empress, so she's chill, and recapture Marina and the scroll, but Snails is killed. Which I didn't expect him to actually kill Snails.
That
Someone
death
killed
scene
him.
was intense.
Threw him from a building, like just
Threw him
threw
like
his
a
body
piece
away.
of garbage.
Yeah, they fully killed it. You kind of expect it to be like he's going to save him, but no. Oh, he's the Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Well, he's the comic relief that gets like killed. But
As Obi-Wan is the comic relief of Star Wars.
But I feel like, Obi-Wan. I was thinking of Han Solo. He's not the Obi-Wan. There's this bit like, okay, so you're about to say this, but Ridley also gets stabbed, and Marina like revives him.
Yeah.
But they just leave Snails.
Yeah.
I know the Snails fully died, but also
They were
you
also
wouldn't-
leaving in a hurry.
Yeah, you couldn't just go down and try and grab your best mate and revive him too.
Well, I think it was that Snails was already dead and then Ridley was dying. So they're like healing him.
Yeah.
But
they
Snails
didn't have
comes
Revivify.
back, all right, at the end.
Well, yeah.
Well, let's get to that.
Spoilers.
Well, whether or not that is the case is up to interpretation.
Something happens at the end.
Something happens at the end is the best way to explain it.
Yeah.
Something certainly happens. No idea what it is. They retrieve the rod from the temple, but Damodar takes it off them and gives it to Prophion, allowing the two factions to clash in the skies of the city. Ridley manages to kill Damodar, and with the help of his allies defeats Prophion, refusing the power of the rod and destroying it. It's the best way I can think of to summarize that third act. Ridley later visits Snail's grave with Marina, Elwood, and Norda. When he places the eye of the dragon on the grave, the ruby starts to glow and Snail's name disappears. The group is then transported away.
Transported away.
And
It kind of feels like they turned into... They were... I don't know what they were doing.
maybe
Okay.
the gem was sucking them into the gem.
Well, that's
and
what I was
they were
confused
all living
about.
in the gem
It just doesn't
together.
make any sense.
I kind of feel like they died. Like, it feels
They're
like they
you-
ascended.
She says something like, "You'll be with him soon," and
Yeah.
he's definitely dead.
Right?
That's explicit.
Yeah.
But he's
like-
he's at the grave and he's like, "Oh, I'm just on my way to get knighted," which I was like, "Okay, you're bragging to your dead friend about how you're going to get knighted for the adventure."
Seems like
you
it all
both
worked
went
out
on.
pretty well for me.
Yeah. But then, like, for them to get whisked away.
Why did the name disappear? I guess because if
Yeah,
he's
why
alive,
did the name disappear?
Well, because if he's alive, he can't have a grave.
That's
So is it a time?
That's
Is
true.
it a time thing? You know, in Back to the Future when he's looking at the grave and like the you know like the fucking names are changing in front of him because he's changing the past.
I feel like it's
There's
Is
time
that the
travel in this
implication?
film. Yeah.
it's Earth Angel. You know, it's the equivalent of seeing his hand disappear.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be something to do with. There's a few points where characters will inscrutably look at each other and then sort of go like, does he know his power about Ridley? And then sort of not really explain it to anyone or what his power means.
I didn't realize Ridley was the chosen one until that point where those elves say explicitly,
yeah.
he's the does he know he's the chosen one?
Does he get it? Does he
Yeah.
get it? And no one ever explains it to him.
I love how in these stories it's always the most bland male with brunette hair that is the
Yeah.
chosen one because.
Just like
After we
June.
watched this, we watched the 1984 June.
Yes.
And Carl McLachlan is so much worse than Timothy Chalamet, I now realize, as
Yeah.
a Paul. He is so bland and boring.
Love Kyle MacLachlan, but yeah, he's not
Shocking
really
in
giving it in June.
Shocking.
But that's the thing. I think it's got to be to do with that, and that he's unintentionally doing some sort of magic with the dragon eye. But then everyone like puts their hands together, like they're gonna go like, you know, go ducks, mighty ducks.
Yeah.
And then they all turn into light and fly away in different. They're not all together. They're like
They're
fly
like little
separately.
flying orbs shooting off into the forest.
Are they teleporting or did they die?
What don't you
I
get
feel
about
like they
this,
elected
Michelle?
to die early to join
I think-
Marlon Wayans.
I think their players are re-rolling their characters.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe, you know?
That's cool.
I think they've all been sucked into the gem and they live in like a little ruby house.
Look,
Like it's got ruby
I
walls.
think Marlon Wayans goes into the gem because his name disappears and the gem glistens. It looks like he's been
how
sucked
did
in.
how did he get in that? Look, I'm
His
not gonna
name,
lie.
at least, is good.
When I watched the ending, as soon as they like flew away, I started cackling and did not stop for 5 to 10 minutes.
Such a
The
good
entire credits, I was laughing and chanting with fist pumping, going yes, 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 because it was easily the most batshit ending I've seen.
But there's a sequel, right? to
There's
this?
2.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's continuity with the first one.
Well,
I think Bruce Payne comes back, like
Yeah.
Damodar.
Damodar weirdly comes back. One of the only characters who's explicitly killed does come back.
Don't you think that Bruce Payne as Damodar with the blue lipstick that he wears the entire time looks like Fiona Shaw?
Oh my god!
Tell me he doesn't.
No, I didn't think it, and then you're 100% right.
I was watching the movie with a photo of Fiona Shaw and just looking at Damodar's face for the comparison.
His weird metallic blue lipstick was insane the whole movie. However, when he was facing off with Richard O'Brien's character, fucking Riff Raff was in this movie.
Richard O'Brien.
The guy who wrote, made,
Horror
and
Guy?
starred in Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah. He's that New Zealand guy. We were looking him up last night because I was like, I've seen that guy before.
Yeah, it's fucking Richard
has-
O'Brien.
Yeah.
The guy with like 8 earrings.
Yeah,
But they're
he-
all in two
I will say
earring holes.
he was great in this. I
Yeah,
really
he was
enjoyed
a
him
real
in this.
highlight. He brought a lot of energy.
When he
really
was
did.
facing off against Damodar, though, I was like, I'm glad one of them has metallic blue lipstick because these two bald guys look kind of similar.
The metallic blue lipstick is exactly how I did my makeup when I was 6. Like, I feel like I had so many metallic blue and purple lipsticks.
Oh my
and as
God.
like a 6-year-old girl, you're like putting it on in the mirror.
Oh my
And you're
God.
wearing it all day.
I-
It kind of looks like that.
I didn't really get Damodar's deal because he's the head of the Crimson Brigade, and there's the one bit where he's talking to Marina because he gets forced. Okay, hang on, let me rewind. He fails to get the thing, and so Profion, what that was meant to be is Profion gets a mind flayer put in his head. Not how mind flayer works. Abby, do you know what a mind flayer is?
I do know what a mind flayer was. I did not think that was a mind flayer
No.
at any
Neither,
point.
Neither did I.
Did you see it? Did you get it was a mind flayer?
No, I didn't. But then there's that thing in Baldur's Gate where they have the little slugs.
Yeah.
So maybe that's
The tadpoles, as
The
they call
tadpole.
them.
No, there's tadpoles in Baldur's Gate. So I don't know. I actually, as much as I've said I was a big D&D guy, I don't know the life cycle of a mind flayer well enough.
Nothing like this. This
Yeah,
is very
okay,
different.
I take that on good authority from you.
But he kind of implies to Marina that he doesn't really care about Profion. You know, there's that interrogation scene, and he's like, you know, I don't want to do it. I've been loyal to the Empress. Which maybe he was just lying to her, but then when he gets the Mind Flayer out, he's just like still fucking with Profion.
Yeah.
So I don't really get what his goal was.
I don't understand him either. And frankly, I don't care to.
There's a lot of politics in this that don't make sense because they never really explain in the context of this. Like, mage seems to be a social class as
Yeah.
well as a job.
Listen,
So they're nobles.
I think like the prequel, like the Star Wars prequels, I do not watch fantasy and sci-fi for long, like political debates between council members. And this film had a lot of debates between Profion and Savina that I could just completely zone out to, frankly.
Yeah. It's annoying because I actually sometimes do really enjoy when that is part of a fantasy movie. I really like when there's these like complicated internal politics and stuff. It's part of what I enjoy about Game of Thrones.
This wasn't even intrigue. This was just
No, it was not intrigue, and I was not intrigued.
yeah, nothing really interesting happened politically.
Oh my god! Before I want to talk about some of the production history, but before I do want to highlight the fucking thieves' maze because that bit for me fucked hard.
That was a good bit.
I kind of really liked the thieves' maze.
Yeah, that was really fun.
good.
When he got on those swinging axes and was jumping from the top of each swinging axe, highlight.
Absolute highlight.
scene.
That probably was the high watermark.
Yeah.
Sort of for this film.
Yeah. So I want to give you some of the production history. So,
Please.
like I said, Courtney Solomon was a Dungeons and Dragons player who had personal experience with the entertainment industry because his mother was a production coordinator on TV, right? He's Canadian as well. So he wanted to produce a film, but since 1990 when he managed to get the rights. He managed to contact staff from Dungeons & Dragons publisher TSR under the guise of working on a school economics project. They informed him about studios in the past failing to produce a film based on the game due to having too little an understanding of the RPG's X factor. It took him 18 months to convince TSR to set up negotiations, but TSR finally agreed to it because of his upfront royalty being better than other studios, and he managed to obtain an option after writing a 30-page proposal of showing how he would adapt the game and going through 3 months of intense broker dealing with the game's publisher.
Okay.
Wow.
So he spent almost 2 years trying to convince them and eventually basically just gave them a really fucking good deal and a 30-page thing going like, I'm going to make it like this, and this is how it's going to be loyal to Dungeons & Dragons, which I love. Mm-hmm. He went then on an 18-month-long trip across the world to try and fund the film once a draft of the screenplay was completed, and most of the film's financing depended on foreign distribution rights. During the trip, he met a leading businessman in Asia named Alan Zeman, who viewed the 24-year-old, so he's 24 by this point, as a young, ambitious, artistic person, as well as a convincing salesman. Of a project based on an enterprise with a huge fan base. In early 1992, Zeman and Sullivan formed Sweepy Entertainment, which I mentioned earlier. Originally, Solomon planned to have Dungeons & Dragons be a $100 million studio project with a big name in the director's chair. During development, Francis Ford Coppola, James Cameron, Rennie Harlan, and Stan Winston were all at different times attached to direct the film, but dropped out.
Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes.
Wow.
Cameron in particular was attached for the longest and decided to step off so that he could do Titanic.
Oh, shit. I bet he wishes he went with Dungeons & Dragons, huh?
In addition, the movie received positive coverage in Movie Line and announced the project in a 1995 issue when Stan Winston was still signed on, revealing plot details. Included some of the things that were in the movies: a rogue lead, a magical dragon controlling device, and a 14 creatures from the original game, which is very funny as a way of phrasing it.
What were the 14 creatures?
Could it be 14 creatures of your choosing?
Not all of them made it in.
There
and
was
that's
a
the thing.
beholder and an imp.
Yeah. Well, there was a pseudo dragon, the little dragon assistant thing that we see a handful of times, the little CG dragon that we see sometimes.
With the long nose?
Yeah.
I thought that was
The
the imp.
evil. I thought it was an imp as well.
Maybe it's an imp. I guess it was. A majority of studios and directors loved the screenplay, but turned away due to lack of recent success in the big-budget fantasy genre and Justin Whalen's lack of star power. Solomon and the studios he encountered constantly conflicted with TSR, which wanted a direct-to-video release instead of the big-budget theatrical film Solomon dreamed of. Cameron, I already said this.
Why did he insist on Whalen? Was it really just it was a non-negotiable for him that his best friend
I
had
guess.
to be
I mean, they were
the lead?
friends, you know? Also, Solomon said the amount of focus on getting the film greenlit caused the relationship with his girlfriend to break apart. So he's like ruining his life to try and make this movie over the next decade.
What the fuck?
Far out.
Eventually,
How's he living? Like, how's he earning money?
I have no idea. I guess because he's managing to get some financing.
Yeah.
That's helping probably personally finance him.
Yeah.
Eventually, Joel Silver, notable for producing Die Hard in particular, joined the project in 1997. This is what eventually helps get it over the line. He initially wanted to make it a TV series. However, TSR, and then now is becoming Wizards of the Coast, really didn't want to do a TV series. This is when it became a $3.5 million direct-to-video film because the $100 million budget became too risky. But then this apparently caused like a whole argument between Wizards of the Coast, Courtney Solomon and the studios who all wanted different things.
Yeah.
Solomon wanted it to be a bigger film. TSR wanted it to be direct-to-video, but also wanted it to be a real movie, in their words, and so then started to go against the direct-to-video thing. Eventually, they managed to increase the credibility because of Joel Silver and get it up to $30 million. So that they could shoot in, at the time, the Czech Republic, now Czechia. So this I thought was also interesting. Solomon began writing the script in 1991 based on the rules of the second edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and he planned it to be a film trilogy, his goal being to, and I quote, create the Star Wars of the fantasy genre, using the original Star Wars trilogy as a template for the story arcs.
Oh, no.
So that's why there's so much that's clearly just Star Wars.
Is.
Wow, you
There's
just
so much.
popped to it. Yeah. I mean, you would, though.
Oh, yeah. He said he also had to risk the combat actions not reflecting how players would use them, saying somebody could be casting one of those spells and be standing there for 10 minutes until the spell is ready to go. Spells were occasionally altered from their original descriptions if they weren't visual enough. For instance, the Mind Flayer and stuff.
I love how shit some of the spells were. I love how at one point Profion was just like, shield!
Yeah.
And he made a shield.
The bit where those dragons are flying at a tower, and there's this moving object, and there's like 10 guys, and they just shoot a fireball like at where it's currently at.
Yeah.
And they all miss. And then that's it. They spent their fireballs. That was a highlight for me.
Now, Courtney Solomon at an earlier point had said that he wanted to make... So around this time is when he has to step up to direct it, because after James Cameron steps off and Stan Winston step off, there's no one left to direct it, and it kind of becomes this thing where he's like, I've been with it for a decade, I don't want to direct it, but I think I know how to do it. And he in particular stated that he wanted to do it different than how other adaptations and fantasy things become, like disrespectful to the source material and focus more on like just big visual bombast. At the same time, the director still intentionally went for a wow factor with the film, and he said, well, you have to be able to say wow at least 10 times in the first 30 minutes.
I didn't say wow once in the first 30 minutes.
No Claude wows.
No wows from me.
The two toughest scenes for the cast and crew to film were the maze scene and the concluding battle. The battle is 11 minutes long and required more than 280 shots and filmed in a 360-degree panoramic blue screen stage.
Fuck.
Due to it involving more than 150 computer-generated dragons.
Oh my god.
It was, and this is, I included because of the way it's written, it was tough for the actors as they had to fight while imagining dragons were around them, and it was tough for the director because the actors could not interact with the dragons that would be imposed in post-production later.
150. I didn't need that many dragons.
Way more dragons than necessary.
There were some shots where there were some dragons in the sky, but like I clearly can't count beyond like 15 because I was like, there's like maybe 15, 20 dragons.
If it was the staff could control a gold dragon and a red dragon, still cool.
Still cool.
There's 148 dragons too many.
What meeting do you think they had where Courtney Solomon sat down and said, look, I'm thinking like 150 dragons? Was there no one that thought, whoa, it's like way too many dragons?
Can we do less? Well, it's only 75 each.
75 gold, 75 red.
All right, because I have so much, do you want to hear some trivia?
Please.
Yeah, please.
IMDb trivia.
So some of this is still production history stuff, but I found it interesting. Jeremy Irons was the last actor to get on board. He did so through the connection of Joel Silver, who previously worked with him on Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Oh, yeah.
He initially rejected the opportunity as he was overseeing the renovation of a Ballydehob castle he purchased named Kilcoe.
What?
However, Silver then convinced him with a package including the script and sketches of the film.
Imagine being too busy with a castle you've just purchased.
Well, when asked why he did this film, Jeremy Irons replied, "Are you kidding? I just bought a castle. I had to pay for it somehow." When working on Dungeons & Dragons, Snails actor Marlon Wayans was also filming Requiem for a Dream. The insane... Meaning he had to go back and forth from Prague to New York, and deadlines for fight scenes involving the character became very strict.
Imagine going from Dungeons and Dragons to Requiem for a Dream.
Despite playing a dwarf, Lee Arenberg was a 5'8" actor. He's taller than I thought. I thought he was a short guy. Which meant he had to stoop his head, squat while still, and move with his legs apart and have extensive costuming in order to look short. He described his role as the hardest he'd ever done, primarily due to having to perform action scenes while wearing a red beard that itched like crazy and about 50 pounds of clothing complete with padding.
Why was his beard so red? Like it looked like a dyed red, not like a natural ginger,
Could've
like
just
a
hired
bright
guy
fire
with a
engine red.
beard.
Because he's a dwarf. That's it. That's the only
Surely there's some
explanation I got.
short, red-headed men out there
Well,
who were
apparent-
overlooked for this role.
There's another quote I found from Lee Arenberg, which was because he was one of the taller actors auditioning for it, and he apparently said, I'm inches taller but a foot more talent than anyone else auditioning for this part.
Nice.
Nice.
Which is
Nice. I
fun.
would have given it to that guy as well.
Yeah,
if
totally.
If he said that in the audition.
When directing Marlon Wayne's improvisational method of acting, Solomon offered him the ability to perform 3 ad-libs in exchange for properly saying 3 lines in the script. Which is such a fun... Right, Wayne, you can do it. You just have to say the real lines. Just hit good 3 at a time.
Please, I'm begging you.
Richard O'Brien also improvised lines, such as the "Oh, what a romantic notion" in the scene after Ridley goes through the thieves' maze. The line was scripted "Honors for fools, my friend," but the actor dismissed it as cliched swords and sorcery kind of dialogue.
That was not the worst line in the entire film. Like there were plenty of other horrible tropey bits of dialogue.
But the way he delivers "Oh, what a romantic notion," like he was right. That's a better line.
Yeah.
It was a good line.
Whalen prepared for his role by watching Dungeons and Dragons games in person, but then realized that it seemed to mostly be about arguing and just put my trust in a script.
That's so good. Did he know these people, or was he just like, I'm just going to sit in
Apparently
any game?
He just sat in on a game and was like, these people just fight. I don't think I'm going to learn anything from this. Apparently, the effects team had some difficulties. Most of the conception progress of the different practical effects and stuff involved members coming up with various concepts but never agreeing to final designs, meaning compromises had to be determined under deadlines during filming. The head makeup artist suggested more time could have been saved if the crew had simply borrowed from Dungeons and Dragons books instead of trying to cleverly expand the game's universe. So that addresses the thing you were saying earlier, Claude, of which were the creatures? It's like, well, they kept trying to think they could outdo it and
Why?
instead didn't come up with anything.
But wouldn't you go and watch a D&D film because you want to see
You'd think so.
that there was a new D&D film like a year or two ago, right?
Yeah, Honor Among Thieves.
I feel like they just put in all of the
They did, and it
kind
was
of
great.
nods that the people wanted.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
If we still had a robust physical media industry, that absolutely would have done gangbusters on DVD and Blu-ray.
For sure.
Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor, who you might have recognized as one of the elves in this movie.
yeah, of course.
The one that says that magic's in everything.
Yeah.
He
Who starts
schools
talking about the Force.
that
Yeah.
mage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Baker was offered both this film and the role of Gandalf in Lord of the Rings at the same time. Both of the films were overseas productions, this being filmed in Canada and Prague, and Lord of the Rings being filmed in New Zealand. Baker chose this film because the 8-hour flight to Canada was significantly shorter than the 24-hour flight to New Zealand. And because all 3 Lord of the Rings were going to be filmed back-to-back, Baker would have to move to New Zealand for the whole production, something he did not wish to do. Baker has publicly stated that he does not regret this decision.
Why would he not regret that decision? Is that just pride?
I think
Hubris?
think-
Ego?
I think part of it is he's an old man, I think he just didn't want to do it.
It's okay to regret a stupid decision like that.
Yeah, that's
Ian
true.
McKellen needed it,
Ian McKellen was,
he needed
to be honest, I think he was the perfect Gandalf, and I'm glad that it ended up that way.
Maybe
'Cause I
Tom
actually
Baker was
don't
like, I'm
really
just being an
care about-
ally. I'm giving a queer man a good role.
Yeah, exactly.
The character Nihilus, played by Richard O'Brien, speaks the line, "You finish the maze, you win the prize." Richard O'Brien often spoke this line when he hosted the British game show, The Crystal Maze, in the 90s.
Nice.
So that was kind of a reference to his earlier thing of just being a host.
That's cool.
Nice.
And here's the last one. Another ending was shot where Empress Savina destroys her rod and proclaims the heroes champions of the throne. According to director Courtney Solomon, this was such a bad idea, he didn't even put it on the DVD.
I have to say, again, I know we talked about it briefly, but Thora Birch's performance was a highlight for me because of how bad it was. But there's that bit at the end where she's in that gold costume, very Florence Pugh and June 2,
Yes.
or vice versa, really. And she is at one point on the ground and there's this gold monkey skeleton on her
Yes.
back, pinning her down, and she's like, and I think we both went, what's going on?
Oh, that was
What was that?
Couldn't tell you.
I also love that
Couldn't tell
she's
ya.
flying on the back of something.
Oh, the dragon.
On the dragon.
The gold being generous, they're sort of mud brown.
Yeah. But like all of the CGI shots of that were terrible. And like when she's flying, she just kind of looks really ambivalent. Like she's barely there. Like there's this vacancy in her
very
eyes.
disengaged.
Yeah.
All the CG in general was abysmal.
The CGI was okay. So we actually ended up watching it on YouTube because I couldn't cast Plex to the TV, and I had to watch it on YouTube. And the quality was really bad, and that added to everything.
Oh my God.
Because the quality was so shocking, everything was kind of blurry, and you could still tell how bad the CGI was through the bad quality. It was fantastic.
Do you want to hear some reviews?
Yeah.
Reviews!
So this is 9% on Rotten Tomatoes and 3.5 on IMDb. Jeff Pevere of the Toronto Star said, described it as a wheezy quest story steeped in hobbity gibberish and secondhand Star Wars costumery, featuring a cast so uniformly uncharismatic you may pine for the methody depths of Kerwin Matthews, apart of course from the reversely charismatic Irons. The movie has the cheap software look of something found on the Space Channel at 4 a.m.
Oof.
Yeah. Solomon himself blamed the quality of the film on its investors and license holders' interference, as well as his own inexperience in filmmaking. I mean, he'd never directed anything before. This is a $45 million movie.
Yeah, this was a pretty big ask.
He also claims he was forced to use an older script despite having written an updated version that fit the Dungeons & Dragons license better. Sure, bud.
Yeah.
Here's an IMDb review titled, I Loved It, by Janning Schroeder, 33,496. Though under-budgeted, it pulls off a fantasy flick very well. Fantasy is one of the most unrated genres out there, and this film, though childish, is not made to be a masterpiece of cinematography. It's supposed to be over-the-top, unthought of drama. Though not playing out like D&D, that was one of its strengths, given the most popular D&D video on YouTube has mortar cycles and doesn't even play out like D&D. The one-dimensional characters are for the kids. It's not...
That's what kids want. They want one-dimensional characters.
Hate dimensionality.
It's
hate
not.
depth.
It's to not bog them down in social complexities. The art was on par for its budget. The characters were watchable. The plot, though one-dimensional and classism taking over the general idea of mages in D&D as a whole, was one of the main criticisms. Though Jaws is found to be likewise, and it's considered a masterpiece by most.
Wow.
This is... Sorry, I feel like I'm having a stroke. This is to take dragons to the big screen after dragon movie had failed. Compared to the PC nonsense, though, I would say this movie is a masterpiece compared to the nonsense we have now.
Wow.
10 out of 10.
Whoa.
What a review.
Well explained.
Yeah, it's one-dimensional characters,
gets you with
one-dimensional
Jaws in the middle.
He really
Yeah.
does.
He really does.
Here's another one titled Best Fantasy Movie Ever by FJ64. I listened to the critics. They shot it dead, and I believed them. The wife and kids saw it and said it was good, but I was still unsure. For how could these critics get it wrong? A workmate came in and said it was great. Huh? I told him about the critics, but he still said he enjoyed it. That was it. Damn the critics. I have to see this movie. I loved it. I nearly missed it. Did Profion overact? No. He played the part of an insane mage wonderfully. Did Empress Savina appear shaky? Yes. Wouldn't you if you were young and trying to change things while nearly every mage around you opposed you? She played the part well. Did Snail scream too much? No. He screamed just enough. Were the locations and special effects good? Yes, they were awesome. Oh, was it realistic? No. It's a fantasy movie after all, and it's all about imagination. Yes, I really did enjoy this movie. It's the best fantasy movie ever made, and it rates as one of my all-time favorites. I recommend it to everyone, but remember, sit down, forget about reality, and imagine away. On a parting note, I did learn something from the critics. They were wrong. From now on, I will no longer concern myself with what they have to say.
That's
10 out of 10.
amazing. It's a journey of self-discovery.
It was. It was kind of better written than the movie. Here's another one titled Excellent Movie, Complaints Few and Far Between and Easily Fixed by Saripti. Dungeons & Dragons is an excellent movie. The special effects are great, the story's good, and it's well executed. However, there are quite a few people that complain about plot holes and overacting. Profion, played by Jeremy Irons, is the only one I might consider saying was overacted. But he's supposed to be at least semi-insane, so it fits. There are a number of small plot holes and some things that need better explanations, but nearly all of them would be fixed with a better cut of the movie. They cut far too much out. It's less than 2 hours. 110 min, I think? A couple more scenes and an extension here and there to a few of them, and almost every complaint is fixed. The DVD will be director's cut and have a lot of extra stuff on it, so that should fix most of its problems. That was not true. This movie is supposed to be the first of the 3, but we'll have to see if this one does well enough for the other 2 to be made. I hope that it does. I urge you to see it. It's great fun to watch. I've seen it 4 times and I'm planning to go see it again. Awesome movie. 10 out of 10.
I urge you. None of these reviews are unapologetic. They're all
No.
apologetic.
Yeah, they are.
They all acknowledge faults.
10 out of 10 as long as you fix all the problems.
Use your imagination.
Here's another one. Forget D&D, think Doctor Who by Syntax 2000.
What?
This is what I'm talking about, baby. It was awesome. Screw the D&D game anyway. It sucked. And the props in the film were not that bad. I'm talking about the legend himself, Tom Baker, making an appearance, as well as Jeremy Irons.
3 minutes.
Best role next to Die Hard with a Vengeance. I am so sick and tired of you guys not knowing how to have fun with a cool, cheesy movie at the theaters. Not everything has to be Shakespeare, you know. What we have here is simply a fun action fantasy film. I loved every second of this film and would highly recommend it to Doctor Who fans. As for you Dungeons and Dragons game fans, all I can say is better luck next time. 10 out of 10.
Jeez.
Wow.
I have one last one that's short. Sorry, I have so many. There's just so many good ones.
No, they're amazing.
This one's titled Fantastic Fun and Adventure for All by Dolphin Girl 2176.
Now that's a handle.
Oh yeah. I loved this movie. It had everything. Romance, comedy, sword fights, booby traps, and so much more. There is nothing I did not like about this film. I could watch it again and again, and I highly recommend it to all. 10 out of 10. That was all these people, the kind, good people of D&D. What was your guys' reviews? Abby?
It was a confusing mess, but there were some highlights to it. Would I ever watch it again, though? Probably not. Like, I probably wouldn't bother. It wasn't entertaining enough to watch again. It felt like a bit of a slog, despite how many things it had going for it. But Claude, our mark, the way that we rate these things is that, have you ever seen the Russell Crowe film A Good Year?
No, I haven't.
Where he goes to a French vineyard. It's really bland and boring. And there's nothing really wrong with it, but there's nothing good about it. It's very much an average film. And that's how, 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
This, I'll give it a 4.5. It wasn't that bad.
4.5?
It wasn't that good.
That's pretty generous.
I know.
Pretty generous. Claude, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually seen this film more than once.
Yeah.
And I've seen it again as an adult, actually, maybe 4 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And I still, when Abby was like, let's watch this, I was like, yeah, that'll be fun. So at least I must remember some sense of fun. I think with time and distance, it becomes a better film. The more you forget about
It's a fine wine. It ages. Yeah.
So it can't be that bad if it's at least I thought about rewatching it.
That's true.
I think I would give it maybe a 4.5, 4.
4?
Probably a 4. I think there's enough star power in Jeremy Irons and frankly in Damodar to make it worth watching.
Yeah.
But it was really confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
that would be my
gibberish.
main criticism of it.
Is that it doesn't make any sense?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's not that I disagree with you. I do think I had quite a fun time with it in general. I agree with Dolphin Girl. It had romance, comedy, sword fights, booby traps, everything, you know? But also it's not very good. But I would watch it again. I'm with Claude on this one.
Nice.
I would watch it again. I absolutely want to show other people this absolute bullshit movie. So I'm going to give it, I think for that, I'm going to give it slightly higher, 4.6.
Wow.
This is why the movies we keep giving them higher and higher ratings.
know,
But
This
you
is
would
the
watch it
problem.
again.
I
It
would
is
watch it again.
Fun.
It was
It was fun. It was fun. It was a fun
It was
film.
fun.
It was fun.
Hey,
fun.
it was fun.
It was fun.
Well, you know, that was what we thought of it. You know where else we have thoughts? on social media. You can find us on Twitter at RateDescendPod. You can find us on TikTok at RatingDescending, or you can email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com. We love the emails.
Or you can now find us on YouTube at Rating Descending.
Or you can even find me specifically on my own social media. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Michelle.St. on Letterboxd at mstclair. Or you could also, also please go watch Shippers on YouTube at Shippers the Series and No Ordinary Love at No Ordinary Love Series.
And don't forget to leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Nice.
It really makes a difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Abby, that was Dungeons and Dragons. What are we watching next week?
Next week, we're watching The Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas.
Yes! I watched this movie so much as a kid.
I've never seen it.
Is this the one with Kyle MacLachlan?
What?
There's a Flintstones with Kyle MacLachlan.
I don't know. I mean,
Is there?
He plays like the corporate boss of the...
maybe. Because I know the original Flintstones has John Goodman and Rick Moranis. This is the sequel that replaces John Goodman with Adam Baldwin, I'm pretty sure. Or, yeah.
God.
One of the Baldwins.
It's live action.
Stephen Baldwin? Yeah, live action.
Yeah, apparently Kyle MacLachlan was in the original Flintstones film.
But we're not watching that one. We're watching Viva Rock Vegas.
Woohoo!
Yabba dabba doo!
Wow. Thanks for joining us, Claude.
Thank you for having me
It's
on.
so good to
Claude.
see you again.
It's great to see you. It's great to confirm that Mish exists.
Yeah, and it's so good to confirm you really do have a husband.
I know. I like to keep my worlds separate so then I can tell a series of lies to both of you.
For
That makes sense.
sure.
That tracks.
I know.
Well, see you next week, guys.
See ya.